I just valued every day. I'd wake up in the morning and I just wanted to be the guy that wanted to make a difference, have a big impact on the day. I was just a fierce competitor. Maybe sometimes I was over the top, maybe sometimes I knew when to overstep the mark. But my aggressive streak has always been there.
Allan Donald, to me, had it all.
Nothing compared to Donald, you know, in the heat of battle, under pressure.
Allan Donald is right up there on the pantheon of great fast bowlers.
I think he was a genius of a bowler.
In many ways, you almost couldn't fail with him in your side.
It just came to him, you know, without too much effort.
When Allan came on to bowl and he had smelled blood, it was just wonderful theatre.
When he had the ball, you just had to watch.
In his pump, he was as good as any of them.
He just was a superb, great fast bowler, simple.
I think our whole family had a love for the game.
My uncle and my brother and used to cut a strip in my granny and granddad's backyard and used to play test matches there at the back.
And little did we know what a superstar he was going to become. The only way I could actually get him off that pitch was if by some accident we would break a window. And we often broke windows, and that stopped the game until my father got home.
It was during this time, growing up in the heart of South Africa's Free State, that Donald became friends with another Bloemfontein schoolboy, one who would go on to captain South Africa.
Frans and Allan were actually the same class. Hansie was a bit younger.
When he left me, then he would phone Hansie, and he'd spend days with the Cronjes.
Yeah, we were brothers, and I used to be dropped off there on a weekend.
They played for Grey Primary, and I remember this blonde-headed fast bowler.
They stayed quite close to the school, and Allan often went there in the afternoons, and they played cricket on the lawn.
The effect that Evie and Frans and Hansie had on me was quite considerable.
Another early influence was Johan Volster.
I remember playing for Grey College under-13 A-side, and he was the under-19 coach, and came across one day at Grey College at the nets and spotted me and immediately took me aside, took me under his wing.
I was very keen to be coached. He had a natural feel for the game, but he also wanted to know more all the time.
As a child, you're looking for some sort of leadership and a man to sort of, or a guy or a coach or a teacher in his case, looking for some guidance, and he was that man. And he really was fantastic.
He did primary schooling here 7 years, and then he went to technical high school.
Upon leaving Louis Botha Technical High School, Donald was enlisted to military service.
In '87, I remember so well, Allan was in the army. I was president of the union, and Allan wasn't fond of the army. And then he came to me and he said to me, he wants to go overseas. I said to him, Allan, finish your army training first, then you can go. He said, no, I want to go now. That was 1987. And I found Ali Bacher, Dr. Ali Bacher.
I had a very close relationship with David Brown from Warwickshire.
He came over on an exchange situation we had with South Africa, set up between Warwickshire and the South African Cricket Board, Ali Bacher.
We came to understanding that we would send over once a year our most promising cricketer, and Allan was one of the players that we sent across to David Brown.
His first session was in the indoor school, and it was wet and cold outside, so we had to go indoors for practice. And he was bowling at Dennis Amos.
Well, Dennis was on his last legs at that stage, and I hope he forgives me when I say that.
He was very quick, and when you're in your 40-odd at the end of your career, that's something that you'd rather not have.
And I bowled him a really good short ball that sort of just went there and it gloved him, and he walked out the net, and I thought, oh my word, what have I done?
Then after about 15 minutes, Dennis said, Andy, you better come in here, I've had enough of this.
Well, I was never into swearing very much, so I'm not quite sure that I might have told him where he should be bowling or should be bowling against other people instead of me.
And he was bowling so fast. It's a quick surface in the indoor school. He was bowling at the speed of light.
He said, this is fantastic what you're going to bring, you know, this is good pace. I want you to do it out there against the opposition.
We were all telling the coach, David Brown, to say, well, we've got to sign this guy, and within a couple of days it was all done, you know. I mean, he was just, you know, very special.
That was my break. So David, when he came with this offer, I just said, I don't care, you know, I'd love to be there, and that was the start of a very, very long relationship with a great club.
I remember when I saw him off at the airport, he said to me, Uncle Des, must I really go? And I said to him, you're climbing on this plane and you're going.
I went there and I couldn't speak a word of English. That was my biggest challenge.
Funny enough, when he came back in September that year, the first thing I noticed was this English accent of Allan Donald.
He was bubbly, he was spontaneous, he was speaking English, he was no longer an introvert, and yeah, that was a turning point in his career.
Allan never looked back after that.
He settled into life in Birmingham very well. He met his wife there. He settled in very quickly.
After that settling in period, Donald helped Warwickshire to their first trophy in 9 years when they overcame Middlesex in the 1989 NatWest final.
I've always heard about Lords and what a big occasion it is. Beating Worcester that year at Edgbaston in the semi-final and ultimately playing against Middlesex in a magnificent final. It was such a nerve-wracking experience.
When he clicked, you know, it was just, he was almost unplayable. And it was big for the club. It was the first time that we'd won anything in a long time.
Winning a one-day trophy there was just absolutely outrageous. I think that was the start of Warwickshire's march to a lot of trophies, especially in the early to late 90s.
Allan was right there kicking it all off for us.
Whilst Donald was achieving his dreams at a domestic level, changes were also afoot on the international stage. Since 1970, South Africa had been banned from competing internationally due to the apartheid regime in the country. Following Nelson Mandela's release from prison in 1990, the apartheid system was being slowly dismantled.
Well, I think the greatest moment I've had in a long history, which I've been privileged to be part of, South African cricket, was the unification of South African cricket in 1991.
In November of that year, South Africa played their first official international cricket match for 21 years.
Oh, I think it was just a great time in world sport, that finally politics had got its nose out of it, and these wonderful South African sports people, and in our sport of cricket, the cricketers, could come out and play world cricket again.
When we got back into international cricket, I took the South African team over to India, in Calcutta, and there were 100,000 people at the ground. You just can't believe that, that you could have this many people at a stadium watching.
And I thought, well, if that's international cricket, I want more of this. And I wanted to lock the door, and I wanted to be part of a South African team for years to come.
We had missed so many great players, and they had missed the opportunity to play Test cricket during apartheid years. It was an absolute shame.
3 months on from their reintroduction to world cricket, the Proteas were invited to compete at the 1992 World Cup, where their first match was to be against joint hosts Australia.
First game in Sydney in the World Cup. Jeff Marsh faced the first over, I think there was a little bit of controversy in that first ball.
I bowled to Jeff Marsh and he just nicked the cover off this thing, and I'm just thinking this is unreal.
A sense of total disbelief, because it was one of those things that was so obvious that, I mean, there was just a celebration, it wasn't even an appeal.
I said to the umpire, I said, did he not nick that? Are you sure he didn't? He said, no, I never saw a deflection. I never heard a nick.
When it was turned down, the thinking from Allan was, maybe it's me. Maybe it's really me. Maybe I imagined it.
And I looked on the big screen and he was staring, looking behind his shoulder, over his shoulder, and he saw it. And he just said, I apologise for that. You know, so, but what a game, you know, we won by 9 wickets and we were off in the World Cup.
In their semi-final clash against England, the South Africans were eliminated due to a rain-interrupted match, which left them requiring a miracle off the final ball to progress. They had, however, announced themselves on the world stage and were greeted as heroes on their return to Johannesburg.
Well, you know, for the first time in my cricket career, I felt like a genuine South African again. And it's nice to come home feeling like a true South African sportsman after so many years.
Things weren't all plain sailing, though, and Donald had seen his overseas player status threatened by Warwickshire's signing of Australian batsman Tom Moody.
I was captain when we had 2 overseas players. We had Tom and Allan, and we had to make a choice at the end of the season as to who was going to be our guy for next year.
We had a difficult decision to make about Tom Moody or Allan Donald.
In my view, fast bowlers win you more matches, and they win matches quicker in all types of the game. And thankfully, I got my way as captain, and I respect everybody for supporting me at that time in keeping Allan.
So we kept AD, and that was to prove a really good decision as well for us.
He had also ironed out the inconsistencies that had been with him from his younger days.
He was really wild and woolly. You're a bit kind of slightly worrying facing him in those early days because he wasn't quite sure where the ball was going.
You know, his line, for example, was one thing that maybe early on he'd bowl it very fast, but it would be a bit leg side, bit offside, sprayed around a bit.
That was in the early part of his career, and he obviously improved and became a very, very high-class performer.
And then obviously as he became a better bowler, he just slightly